Hey there, everybody. Eric back again, your Learning Futurist. This week, I want to talk about the constant tension between privacy and security. A lot of times you can have both. You can be private and secure, but other times these are in direct trade-offs in one another. If you want to be more private, you become less secure and vice versa. What spurred this topic on is Apple has announced that they're going to start uploading and putting software on all iPhones to scan all of your photos for child abuse imagery. And a lot of security experts, privacy advocates are up in arms about this. But again, who wants to argue against protecting children? So we'll talk about this tension between security and privacy and how Apple was compelled to do this and how this program is going to work and what it means for you, coming right up in this video. All right, let's start with what's happening that spurred on this conversation. So Apple announced in the second week of August 2021 that they plan to roll out a CSAM program, a project, child sexually abusive material that they're going to be scanning for on all iPhones, in all messages, pictures sent in iMessages app, and all images that are uploaded to the iCloud service. They're going to be scanning this to match up against a database of known um, imagery of child sexual abuse. Now, I downloaded the technical paper that outlines this, the CSAM detection, and how they describe it is that they're going to be scanning and hashing and matching for this known database. This is managed by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And they have this database of these photos and images, and they're going to be scanning stuff on your phones and everything on iCloud and photos sent through iMessage to match up against this database of known material. And if something's triggered, there's a threshold. Apple will get notified. They'll decrypt your photos, take a look at them. They find something they're not supposed to find. They're going to contact the NCMEC, the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, and someone might show up at your door, or they might do some further investigations on you. Now, this is not necessarily a new thing. Facebook has been doing it for several years. They scan photos and hash them as they're uploaded to Facebook, and a lot of these kind of horrible things are taken down automatically. There's also they use the same thing against hate speech, other graphic things like pornography or violence that gets uploaded to YouTube that are against their community standards. Google has also been doing this for quite a long time. Famously, YouTube, they're probably the most technically advanced on this because they use a similar hashing style to find if anything uploaded to YouTube has copyrighted materials on them, like if you're using somebody else's music or you've used some copyrighted video in your uploads. And I just looked this up. This is Google's transparency report for last year. And through their scans, similar scans, not quite the same, we'll explain the differences in just a moment. They have reported to the NCMEC almost 3 million pieces of content just in the last 6 months of last year. Now, this is YouTube and Google together. So things that probably their index crawler, where they have programs searching the entire internet to have indexed in the Google search, and also things uploaded to YouTube. So that's quite a lot. That was very surprising to me to see that number. And then they disabled almost 100,000 accounts for violating these standards and having these explicit content either related to their accounts or uploaded around their accounts. Now, I have a personal story around this as well. This is, of course, a, a controversial debate, right? Who doesn't want to keep children safe? And I came across this my early days working in computers. I worked at a small independent computer repair store in the 90s, mostly building custom computers, adding and upgrading memory for computers for people, et cetera, et cetera. I was a salesperson at the time, and putting together machines that were custom built, ordered. And someone brought their PC in to have upgraded something. I don't remember what exactly they needed. Maybe there was a problem with it. I'm not sure. But the technician found some child material in this person's machine. I didn't see what that material was, but they reported it to the manager. The manager also looked at it, and the police were contacted. And the police told them to hold the machine while they did an investigation. Then they told them to come pick it up at a certain time, and then the police were waiting for this person when they came to pick up their machine at the store. So this was my first actual brush with this, in reality, to know this was an actual thing happening out in the world. And although I didn't see these images myself, I remember seeing the faces and the disdain and the worry, the disgust on the faces of both the technician and the manager as they explained to me that they had to delay the work order so that the police could get involved in this particular issue. And so when I talk about this issue today, I'm coming from also concern and wanting to help support protecting children, of course, but I also want to have it nuanced with the trade-offs that happen with these types of decisions with individual rights in privacy, security, and some other concerns that I might come up in this talk today. So I wanted to kind of lay out that story for you to kind of set the framework or the ground level of where I'm coming from with this video. All right, so let's go back to CSAM. Right, CSAM's child sexual abuse material and working with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Right, so Apple's going to start rolling this out with the new iPhones, iOS 15. Right, they're going to be uploading, having programs on your specific devices to scan these phones uh, for these images, to compare to this database of images, right? So this is the fun technical part of the explanation. So this is using perceptual hashing, or just hashing as it's termed. It's basically just an algorithm that's going to scan the photo, going to take a look at the file of the photo, and assign it a fingerprint. Now that fingerprint is basically a long string of numbers and letters based on the image pixels, the colors, the arrangement of pixels in it. Um, so it's basically a fingerprint. It's a very unique number, string, letters, and numbers that now is matched with that picture, right? So this is also how YouTube uh, uses hashing in a way to compare, music that you've uploaded or snippets of video to match it with known copyrighted material. So now we have the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children with their database of pictures. So Apple takes their algorithm, their perceptual hashing algorithm, runs it over all of those images, and now they have a database of these strings, these numbers of letters and numbers. And now they're going to put a program on your iPhone that scans all your photos, scans photos in iCloud, and they're going to come up with those strings of numbers and letters, and they're going to compare them to see if there's any matches. And if something does match, then there's the further along this chain of this process they've developed is going to move forward. So there's going to be a hash, a fingerprint derived out of all of your photos, um, that's on your phone that you haven't uploaded anywhere, that you've uploaded to iCloud as a backup, or you've sent through some sort of uh, the iMessage as a picture. So there's a fingerprint that's now going to be made of every photo. And this is, maybe I didn't mention this before, this is not an opt-out thing. Everybody's going to be in this. You don't have a choice. All of your photos are going to get scanned, and all of your photos are going to have this hash fingerprint assigned to them, which is going to be accessible to Apple. Right. So here's the process which they laid this out. That the process is going to work. So we have our database of known images of CSAM images, and you're going to have a program that runs on your phone that matches, that scans your photos, generates these fingerprints using perceptual hashing, and then match it up. And then if it matches, then that photo gets uploaded to Apple, or that match gets uploaded to Apple. And then they don't say how much, but there's a threshold of triggers that triggers a further investigation. And they'll probably pull some more content and decrypt some more photos from your phone in this further investigation. And at the very end, on the other side there, it's reviewed by Apple and then sent on to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And they'll probably do some further investigations, or they might take action, or your account might get disabled. It's really unclear about the. They're not very transparent about what triggers it, uh, and what will happen. And also, they say that there's a process also if you get misidentified, this because this is an algorithm, they can make mistakes. And we know from facial recognition algorithms and other content ID problems with YouTube that this is not a perfect system. So they say that there is some process from which, if you get triggered or get started to be investigated, um, there's a way for you to dispute that, or try to clear your name if you've been falsely flagged or something like that. That's still a little bit unclear how that works with Apple as well. But that's the basic process, right? This software is now going to be running on all iPhones and Macs. That's going to scan all photos, add these fingerprints. Fingerprints are going to be matched with a database of fingerprints of known content. And if matches are made, something gets triggered, and your phone may be accessed, or your machine may be accessed further to gain more insight about why these triggers happened. Right. All right. So now let me talk a little bit about some things that concern me about this, right? We have these trade-offs between security and privacy, right? And of course, the first thing that comes to mind with a lot of security researchers and privacy advocates is the slippery slope type of argument, right? If your photos are all going to be scanned without your consent, without needing Apple needing to get consent to use scanned and make given these fingerprints, these hashes, why can't they be now matched or identified in other ways? Like these hashes can be identify people inside them, perhaps, or they can identify, like, for example, snippets of music in the YouTube case, or they could be matched up with other databases like um, known political, content, or pictures of known, ideologies or other content in general. So governments may be trying to compel Apple to not only match these photos that are this process is now on all phones, and it has to happen. There's no way to get out of this. Governments may try to compel Apple to match up photos on phones to other databases for other means, and so mission creep is a big concern. I can see this only being pushed as an economic thing. Apple probably is fighting lawsuits all the time for the encryption and allowing people to have maybe um, copyrighted photos and movies and music on their phones that people are sharing. These things can be now scanned on everybody's phones, and then maybe some fines will come your way or something. So I can see this being used in a content ID, a YouTube type situation very easily, having a lot of legal pressure. Now that this system is in place, um, companies know that now they can enforce their intellectual property rights through this mechanism that's created for this, again, very valid mission of protecting children. All right, now let's talk about misidentification. So algorithms I talk a lot about on this channel, they're not perfect. They have biases. Um, I can give you an example from um, recent years and this Compass system. Compass system is an algorithm that helps judges say how strict or what level of the sentencing should be for offenders in the legal system. And this, under independent review, this system was found to be very biased in giving harsher sentences to minority people. Mainly, one of the things that they found out in this is that um, the system would try to predict if this person would be a repeat offender, and using things like their address and their contacts and things like that would put them in a higher risk of being repeat offenders according to this algorithm. But I mean, different neighborhoods, different situations would influence this, and therefore harsher sentence were given to um, people that were undeserving of them, and less harsher sentence were given. And a lot of times it didn't make sense to the actual judge that was giving these sentences. So um, this is not necessarily related. It's not necessarily hashing, but it's an example of how these algorithms um, are kind of depended upon very easily. If you want to learn more about that, uh, weapons of mass uh, mathematication, I think that's a book called. I'll put a link down in the description. There's all types of great examples out in the world already of algorithms misidentifying and being a little bit biased. So, with going back to this being misidentified, so this could happen in a couple different ways. I can see this being now a method of coercion and hacking now. Let's say that you want to damage somebody's reputation. You could find some content and add it to their phone. They wouldn't know it's on their phone because they're in private. They haven't shared it to anyone. Now they're getting flagged and have to go through the process of defending themselves. So this could easily, ruin people's livelihoods through no fault of their own, and this could complicate things for some people. Now, Apple has said that one, their current algorithm is safe to a 1 in 1 trillion chance of making a mistake. Um, if we even believe that number, we know that there are trillions and trillions of photos out in the world on iOS devices, and we're reaching a record number of photos being taken and put on devices and in the cloud and on YouTube, et cetera, every year. So there are going to be some mistakes. How well their process handles this will depend on how severe these misidentifications impact people's lives. We still have yet to see any of that, how that might work out. But it's a concern nonetheless. All right, next one down here is resource allocation. So in past videos, I've talked a little bit about how Apple um, kind of sometimes it seems like they think like they own your device, even though you've bought your iPhone, they somehow still own the devices. The issues like the right to repair, um, you have to always take your device to an authorized repair shop, and they always want to replace things instead of fixing them. Not very good for the environment and not very good for the competitive nature of repair shops. So do you own your phone, right? So this is a program that's going to be loaded onto your phone, and it's going to take battery life. It's going to take computing resources. It's going to take bandwidth sending these signals back and forth to Apple. after these fingerprints have been identified on your phone, it's going to take space on your phone, hard drive space. This database of hashtags of known material is going to have to be stored on your device somewhere, so it can easily and quickly match these up with these known images. So Apple is taking a large amount of overall resources, maybe not so much for each individual user, but in the broad scheme of things, this is quite a large amount of resources, whether it be bandwidth, battery life, computing power, storage, etc., to this effort. And in they've made the decision to use your personal device in these efforts. So again, this is a great, reason to give up some allocation of your phone, but they have made this decision for you in the resource allocations of your phone. And they've already got in trouble by, automatically deciding how fast your phone goes during iOS upgrade cycles in the past as well. All right. Last one here is the shift in attitudes in this behavior. So if we went back just a couple of years, let me bring up a report. This is a letter that Apple sent out to customers in 2016, February 16th. And this was where Apple was under huge pressure by the FBI after a San Bernardino mass shooting where two shooters were out on the loose after doing a mass shooting, and they had one of their iPhones in possession. And the FBI asked Apple to create a decryption software or backdoor into the iPhone so they can crack in and get the information that was in the iPhones. And Apple had to send out this letter, this open letter to all the customers, trying to explain why they refused to create this backdoor into their iPhones. They didn't want a way out there where anyone, even the government, had the ability, even Apple had the ability to open and unlock an iPhone to get at all of the data inside. So they refused this. They gave up all the information they had on these suspects that were out, perhaps on their iCloud data and information they had stored on servers about them, complying with law, but they drew the line at privacy and encryption over this, in this case, public safety, right? This is this kind of tension between these two things, right? Do you make it available for the FBI to crack into phones and possibly not catch these dangerous people any sooner? Or do you protect the encryption, which then might, keep other people safe because they can keep their information safe, their anonymity, all these things that are important in the digital age as well. They came down on the side of individual privacy and security in this case. But now this is from pressure probably from the government, and also because Facebook is already doing it, Google is already doing it. And of course, these companies recently are in a tuffle of shooting words back and forth, like who's more private, who's more secure, right? A little bit of hypocrisy, throwing, shade back and forth on each other on these issues. So it's a shift in Apple to go in this direction in choosing uh, public safety over individual privacy, right? So these are some things that kind of give this idea a little bit of nuance, right? And the last thing here, I'll give a quote from one of the researchers that's looking at this very deeply. It says it's absolutely appalling idea because it's going to lead to distributed bulk surveillance of our phones and laptops, right? One big difference between Facebook and Google, YouTube, CSAM programs and Apple's is the relative privacy that you think you might have. So you upload something to Facebook, you know that Facebook's going to scan it, right? Scan it for faces, scan it for things. I soak up all that data they want to. We just know that Facebook's going to do that to everything that you add to Facebook. Same thing with Google, right? They want to be the leader in search. You upload something to a website, Google's going to probably crawl that website to find all the information it can out about that website. And so if they find something, they're going to share it with the authorities. Same thing with things uploaded to YouTube. But This iPhone situation is something that's on your personal device that you have bought, and now it's going to be scanned using the resources on your personal phone, uploaded to the internet using your personal connection, whether that be Wi-Fi or possibly cellular connection. And so it's reaching out into your personal device that you have paid for and content on your personal device, rather than you having to upload that in the situation of Google and Facebook. And to people like security and privacy advocates, security professionals, this is a very kind of alarming shift in the way those security programs work. All right, maybe a little bit of a long one this week, but it's very nuanced, and I wanted to kind of give all the cover all the bases I possibly could with this particular issue. What are your thoughts? Security versus privacy. Is there always going to be a trade-off between these two? Can you see a win-win situation for these type of behaviors on big tech? Love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and we'll see you again maybe next week. Bye bye now.